Hello everyone. Now this is just a rather short video about retails. I've already made a video about air conditioning today. I'll be returning to interesting topics like space flight, hypersonic travels, scramjets, and such things in the next few days. But for now, I'll just be talking about retails. What are they? Why do they exist? And what are their benefits? And why aren't they used in airliners? Since they actually are quite beneficial now. Retails are the tails you sometimes see on small airplanes, on sports planes, small personal aircraft. Actually, quite few, but some gliders. Now, they only consist of two stabilizers as opposed to the classical tail, which has a horizontal stabilizer, which is actually two stabilizers, left and right. You have two ailerons, two horizontal tiny wings at the back, and then one vertical tail fin with the rudder on it, and a V-tail basically combines this into one, as it has two diagonal kind of fins with small rudders and ailerons on it. They actually double in function. And they're a bit more complicated to operate, though you actually can create a basic mechanical mix to control them, as they act as rudder and aileron both, and they also work as vertical and horizontal stabilizer at the same time. As you can imagine, these two perpendicular tiny wings stabilize the plane in both pitch and yaw. And yes, you can actually mix those two little rudders to use it as both the rudder and the aileron function. And they're quite efficient. They create less aerodynamic drag for the same effect for two reasons. One being that you can kind of, if you can explain it by pushing it back onto the diagonal, Pythagoras basically, the diagonal being the shortest way through a square from one point to the opposite point. And if you look at the retail, the diagonal fins that make up the retail have less length and less surface area than the combined vertical and horizontal fins that would have the same kind of length or reach, so the same vertical or horizontal components. So they have less leading edge, they have less surface area, they are lighter, they cause less drag, and you also only have two in number, so you only have two lines where these fins meet the fuselage, which is actually another aerodynamic rule of thumb, kind of, that Kerbal doesn't teach, by the way, that places where, or lines where wings or fins meet the fuselage, especially if they're not kind of rounded but actually rather blunt, then these cause a lot more drag than just the amount of wing and the amount of fuselage that you have. So independent on how much wing and how big a plane you have, it is always actually kind of clever in real life, unlike in Kerbal, to reduce the overall amount of wings that you have. That is, of course, biplanes being designed for a different purpose with a different design idea in mind. But in general, you want to reduce the amount of fins that you put on your plane, and you can do that with a retail. So it causes a lot less drag for the same effect. Now, why aren't they used in airliners or any really big planes if they are so great? Now this comes down to many things. For once, you can see that if they are actually perpendicular to each other and each stand in a 45-degree angle, that then you have roughly as much yaw stability as pitch stability. They work as a rudder with the same surface area as both the tail fins combined, which is usually not what most plane designs actually need of their tails. So to make it as efficient as possible, you'd have to flatten it out, but then it wouldn't quite work as well, especially with the yaw function, which would then mostly be a roll function accidentally. There are other factors too, like length and structure. Also, airliners are much more complicated than smaller airplanes and are built for an extreme reliability. And the systems that control and move the tail of an airliner wouldn't work as easily in a retail, and it would get even more complicated and less reliable. So there are many reasons why retails aren't really used in airliners. There isn't really one conclusive answer, but in the end it kind of turned out that the standard design of what an airliner looks like, that is nowadays basically optimized again upon uses two separate kinds of fin, and the tail with separate horizontal and vertical stabilizer, and a tail fin with a rudder and the horizontal stabilizers with the ailerons on it. So I hope this was kind of interesting, and thanks for watching.